If you're a student watching this show right now, the next story is for you. If you aspire to study abroad, chances are Canada would be high on your list as a destination. Well, tonight we give you some facts to help you make an informed choice. The Canadian dream has come crashing down. The number of students from India applying to study in Canada has dropped dramatically in the second half of this year. You may think the recent diplomatic row between India and Canada is to blame, but there's more to the story. If you open social media, you will be inundated with videos of students sharing their grievances. They are criticizing the stifling costs of living. They are calling out the lack of opportunities promised. They say they are not happy with the career prospects being offered, especially after doling out nearly 19 lakh rupees a year on Canadian education. Here are some statistics. The number of applications for new study permits from India dropped from a total of 145,881 last year to just 86,562 in the same period of 2023. That's a decline of nearly 40%. Indian students in Canada are worried about the lack of job opportunities. This fear is not without reason. Indian students form a major chunk of international students arriving in Canada every year. According to data, in 2022, a total of 226 or 450 students arrived in Canada to pursue higher education. This made India the top source country for new international students entering the country last year. In fact, India had the most student permit holders in 2022 in Canada. But this year, it's a different story. The fall of applications is rooted in what's happening in Canada. A Canadian news outlet provided some insight. It says that youngsters are now calling out the country's poor economic prospects for aspiring international students. For one, the housing crisis. A combination of record high interest rates and low construction means that new housing units are beyond the reach of common Canadians and near impossible to own for immigrants. Government data says there's a shortfall of at least 345,000 housing units across Canada. So what happens to house rents? They are through the roof. Reports say international students have had to live in cramped basement setups, the same students who came to Canada for better opportunities. Students have shared their experiences online. Many say they are lugging bags, going door to door, trying to find safe accommodation. Those who are lucky enough to find a space end up sharing it with other students in a basement of some house. And reports say they pay as much as $650 for rent. And then there's, of course, tuition fee. It's no secret that foreign students pay at least 3 times the tuition fee when compared to Canadian students. Indian students, like other foreign students, are a huge source of revenue for universities. Students and educationists say that the flood of students isn't being matched by an upgrade in Canadian infrastructure. This includes housing units, healthcare, mental wellness centres. The integrity of Canada's education system is at stake. This is not what we're saying. In an interview, Canada's Immigration Minister Mark Miller said that he is concerned about the overall integrity of the system that educates thousands of international students and not just the added pressure they put on housing. What happens once students graduate? Are they all offered lucrative pay packages? Far from it. Some blame Canada's liberal visa policies for the lack of jobs. They say the ease of entry into Canada means that a deluge of people come in every year and there are not enough opportunities to sustain them or help them thrive. The row between India and Canada over the killing of a terrorist has put the spotlight on Indians in Canada. Questions are being asked, is the Canadian dream worth it? Should you be going to Canada to pursue higher studies? What happens if you don't get a house to live? Will you get a job once you graduate? We presented you the facts. Now you make the choice. The alliance called the G5 in Africa's Sahel region is falling apart. Burkina Faso and Niger have announced that they will leave the G5 Sahel force. Mali left last year. The three are set to make an alliance of their own. Only 2 countries now remain in the G5. They say they can no longer serve foreign interests and outsized roles of nations such as France. Has the anti-jihadist organization run its course? Is this a nightmare for Europe, which has stationed its troops in the region for almost a decade? Here's more.
The G5 force in Africa's Sahel region is falling apart. Burkina Faso and Niger have announced that they will leave the anti-jihadist force. Last year, it was Mali. The G5 has now been reduced to only 2 countries, Chad and Mauritania. Are Europe's worst fears coming true in Africa? Is it failing its former colonies? The Sahel region has long faced severe security and humanitarian crises. This is where it lies on a map. It spans the area from Senegal to Eritrea. It has the Sahara to the north and the African tropics to the south. Jihadist groups are present across borders of the Sahel region. They repeatedly target communities and national institutions through coordinated attacks. To rein in the jihadist forces in this region, the G5 was created. This was back in 2014. Its members were Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger. For nearly a decade now, the EU has been deploying troops in the region to fight armed unrest. So, has it achieved anything? Not much, according to some G5 members, particularly those who have suffered coup d'etat and are now under military rule. After years of French deployments on their territories, military rulers of Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali have all accused France of enjoying an outsized role. Last year in February, France and its allies in a European force announced they will begin withdrawing troops from Mali. It cited the obstructions caused by the ruling military government for this decision. Few months later, Mali officially pulled out of the G5 Sahel. A year on, Burkina Faso and Niger are also out. Why so? According to them, the organization is failing to achieve its objectives. The military-led governments of the 2 countries released a joint statement. It said the anti-jihadist force had failed to make the Sahel region safer, and that it is undermining the nation's desire for greater independence and dignity. The statement indirectly accused France of serving its own interests but stopped short of naming it. Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso have already signed a security pact. They are set to create the alliance of Sahel states. They have promised to help each other in the event of any rebellion or external aggression. Only 2 countries remain in the G5. The question now is, how will this impact the jihadist forces? These groups have been growing in strength across the Sahel region. In 2022, when Mali left the G5, extremist organizations stepped up violence in that region. The first 6 months of 2022 saw a dramatic increase in attacks. More than 2,000 civilians were killed during this period, showing an increase of over 50% from 2021. In fact, March was the deadliest month on record since 1997. What will happen now when 2 more countries quit? Unrest was already on the rise with military organizations in power. With a new Sahel alliance in the making, has the G5 run its course? Are France's worst fears coming true? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And well, now imagine this. You go to a restaurant, you order a nice meal. What do you get on the side? Some mashed potatoes, possibly a garlic bread, a salad perhaps? Well, no. A restaurant in Japan is offering something that you may have never heard before. It's serving slaps on the side, and it's making money doing it. Let's tell you more about this. While Japan is known for its etiquette and discipline, this eatery in Nagoya seems to be an exception. It's called Sachi Hokoya, and it gets paid to slap its customers. Sounds bizarre, doesn't it? Who would want to get a slap and even pay for it? Apparently, a lot of people do, well, locals and tourists alike. They flock to this restaurant just to get smacked. Look at these kimono-wearing, stone-faced women. They slap customers for 300 Japanese yen. That is roughly $2. If customers want to get a red cheek or want to request a specific waitress to slap them silly, they have to shell out a couple of more bucks extra. That is 500 yen or $3.5. And these aren't light slaps we're talking about. Sometimes the patrons are knocked off their seats. One man had to be wheeled out before a line of waitresses. First they respectfully bowed and then they took turns smacking him. Often the customers thanked their assailants for this violent service. So what is the story behind all of this? Sachi Hokoya first opened in 2012, but it was in danger of closing. The staff had to scramble to keep the restaurant running. Soon they had a eureka moment. They came up with this wacky custom. After that, the staff pulled off this stunt, business began to thrive. In fact, it became such a hit, quite literally, that more female waitresses needed to meet demand were hired. Yes, that's how desperate people were to get a tight slap. But unfortunately, Sachi Hokoya has shut down its slap fest now. Last month, some of the slapping videos went viral and drew the attention of local authorities. So, the restaurant put out a tweet urging people not to come, expecting to get hit. Now, this is just one of Japan's many unique and quirky dining experiences. There's one that mimics a blood-splattered asylum. All the waitresses are dressed as nurses here and they will stir your cocktails with sex toys. Diners are handcuffed and served grub in a cramped cell. But it will certainly cost you a fortune, apparently. Another has nothing but peace to offer. While all the bartenders are Buddhist monks, they serve Buddhism-related cocktails and cuisines, and if you are lucky enough, you might catch some spiritual lessons on the side. Then there's one that is decked out like a primary school classroom. The waiting staff are dressed as teachers, and as a treat, customers get to fill their basket with unlimited sweets. What can be better than reliving your childhood? And lastly, for the stargazer, there's one bar that projects 5 million tiny stars on its ceiling. The light pollution of Tokyo City might be a spoilsport for stargazing, but the planetarium bar wouldn't disappoint.